SEQ Water is yet to provide any comment on the interim flood report, but it certainly gave our politicians plenty to talk about this week. The government defended its performance during and leading up to the floods, but the opposition pursued several lines of attack. I discussed the fallout with political reporter Melinda Howells. Melinda, the Water Utilities Minister, Stephen Robertson, was criticised in the report, so it's no surprise that the opposition is calling for his scalp.
That's right, Jess. A section of the report pays very close attention to what Stephen Robertson did last year when the Weather Bureau issued dire warnings about the wet summer ahead. The report says he did seek advice on lowering the water level in Brisbane's Wivenhoe Dam, but that it took 2 months for that advice to reach him. It says Mr Robertson did nothing to resolve confusion about that advice, and there's no record of the decision that he made not to release water. It also says that he didn't consult all relevant agencies about the decision. Mr Robertson accepts some of the criticisms, but he doesn't agree with that last point.
I respectfully beg to differ on that particular finding. But in terms of the recommendations...
Order. The Minister.
In terms of the recommendations of the Commission inquiry, I accept those recommendations. I accept that things could have been done better with the benefit of hindsight.
And Melinda, the Premier is standing by her Minister?
Yes, Anna Bligh ignored repeated calls for Mr Robertson to be sacked, and the government tried to turn the tables on the LNP leader Campbell Newman, who this week said that if he'd been in charge, he would have let water out of the dam. The government took full advantage of the fact that Mr Newman is not in Parliament to defend himself, labelling him Captain Hindsight.
After all, if he was Captain Cook, Mr Speaker, he would have steered clear of Hawaii. If he was the captain of the Titanic, he would have swerved away from the iceberg, Mr Speaker. If he was the member for Warrego, he definitely would have put the wheels down that day, Mr Speaker. If it was Harold Holt, he would have been swimming between the flags, Mr Speaker.
They seek to blame me. They seek to blame the opposition. They seek to blame Campbell Newman. They seek to blame everybody else except the people who sat around the cabinet table.
With the insults flying, there were calls this week to lift the standard of debate in Parliament, and there were significant changes to the parliamentary process.
Yes, on Wednesday, question time was held in the afternoon to allow the new committees to meet in the morning. But that's already proving controversial. This week, the government introduced new legislation for a waste levy, but it set the committee that's going to have a look at that bill a September deadline. The opposition says this shows the government has fallen at the first hurdle in terms of the promise of more scrutiny and accountability. The government says it's not ideal to rush things through, but in some cases it will be necessary. The final phase of the overhaul of Parliament was passed this week, and once again the Speaker has objected to some of the changes to his role, but he's also warned MPs that he's going to be enforcing the rules of Parliament more strictly. He says that MPs on both sides have been getting too much leeway during question time.
We have, along with other jurisdictions in Australia, moved to a point where question time becomes not about questions and answers on matters of public administration, but simply in the public's view, a public slanging match with questions loaded with political imputations and answers responding in kind. I was recently impressed by question time in the House of Commons as regard the phone hacking scandal. This was Westminster's system at its best, where short, proper questions were asked and relevant, concise and direct answers were given in response.
Jess, the opposition tried to get the Speaker to enforce the rules, but the Premier had some objections.
And I would suggest that her answer is not relevant and offends the warning that you gave yesterday.
That any interpretation of the standing orders that would prevent a member of this Parliament making comment on the political views of their opponents would be bizarre and strange and unique to this Parliament.
No doubt we'll have more strange and bizarre things to talk about next time, Jess.
Melinda Howells, thank you.